Russia and the US look set for an international spy swap. The lawyer of a scientist serving 15 years for espionage in Russia could be one of those exchanged for members of the suspected spy ring arrested in the US last week. Initially, he's likely to be extradited to the UK ahead of a handover, alongside another convicted spy, former FSB officer Sergei Skripal. Well, let's get the latest now from RT Sean Thomas, who's here in Moscow, and Gayane Chichikian over in Washington, D.C. Sean, to you first. What do you know about the possible handover between Russia and the US?
Well, officially not much, but on the surface it looks like there is motion happening here for an exchange to take place. Let me explain a little bit what I mean by that. These two gentlemen, Igor Sedyugin and Sergei Skripal, excuse me about that. These two gentlemen are possibly in the motion to have this exchange take place. Sedyugin actually is a scientist, was convicted back in 2004, currently serving a 15-year sentence for espionage. The talk all started when he was being moved from Arkhangelsk to here in Moscow. People were wondering why that was happening. His friends and family decided to tell people that it was because he was part of this exchange that was about ready to take place. And also his lawyer said that he indeed was coming here to be part of this exchange. This second person, Skripal, an FSB officer who was caught in 2004, convicted in 2006 for passing secrets to the UK, serving a 13-year sentence, also possibly being part of this exchange. Now, no official word from anyone in the Russian government as of yet, but at this moment in time, Sedyugin's lawyer basically says that this is happening, and as soon as tomorrow. Listen to what she has to say.
Mr. Sedyugin was offered a deal in which he could be exchanged for members of an alleged spy ring arrested in the US. As far as he knows, the exchange will take place on Thursday. First he'll be taken to Vienna, Austria, and then to the UK.
And right now we're in a wait-and-see mode as this could happen as early as tomorrow, but no official confirmation from the government as yet. But these two people allegedly being exchanged for the 10 people, or part of a group that will be exchanged for the 10 people who were caught in the United States on June 28th.
Gayane, what's the reaction in Washington to this possible swap deal?
Well, Alex, the U.S. media is apparently just waking up to this new twist of a possible spy swap. They're, of course, referring to the statement made by the family and the lawyer of Igor Sedyugin, who's convicted in Russia of passing on secret information to the CIA. But there have been no official comments on that. Reports that we are getting here this Wednesday say, and this is from the New York Times, the U.S. government was discussing a broad and rapid resolution to the case with lawyers for the defendants, which could allow them to return to Russia. Could this possibly mean that a swap is really being considered? I'm afraid we have no more information on that. But what we do have is examples from the past when the U.S. and the Soviet Union traded spies on a number of occasions. The first and one of the most notorious cases from the Cold War happened in the 1960s when an American spy plane was shut down over the Soviet Union. Gary Powers, who was on board that plane, was released in exchange for the U.S. releasing Russian spy Rudolf Abel. Actually, the swap that took place back then was quite dramatic. It happened on a bridge in Berlin. Powers stood at the eastern end of the bridge, Abel at the western end of the bridge, and at the appointed time, the men walked towards each other, crossing with a nod in the middle of the bridge. But that's history. Alice?
Well, back to the present now. Sean, has there been any official comment from Moscow on this current situation?
Not about these two gentlemen and not about the switch. In fact, they've been very quiet about this possibility of an exchange taking place. What they have said is that they are waiting to see how this will all play out. This was when the news of these 28 people being arrested in the United States first broke. They were going to wait and see. And then they also said that they were moving forward with strong U.S. and Russia relations, and this would not affect things like the signing of the START treaty that is now between the U.S. Senate, in front of the U.S. Senate and in front of the Duma for ratification. Now, but they did say that how this would be played out, how this situation was handled, would affect the speed at which the START treaty would be ratified officially and formally, but nothing specifically as to this exchange. However, the lawyers said say it's going to take place as early as tomorrow, but we're still waiting to hear from people within the Russian government.
Guyane, back to you now. Could you just remind us briefly about the spy scandal itself?
Yeah, sure, Alice. What's happening now is hearings ongoing in different cities. Prosecutors say one of the defendants admitted that he'd been in contact with Russian intelligence and that he used a fake name. Two other Russians also said they lived under false names. One of the defendants in the case is still missing after skipping bail in Cyprus. Most of those detained are married couples with children. All 11 are accused of trying to infiltrate the U.S. policymaking circles to gather information for Russia, but no report suggests that they obtained and leaked classified information, and because there is no evidence of damage done to the U.S. national interest, they are not accused of espionage. And under the charges that they face now, which is failing to get registered as agents of a foreign government, they may face up to 5 years in prison. But most of the individuals are also accused of money laundering, with much stiffer penalties, and if convicted, they may be sentenced to 20 years in prison.
Okay, many thanks to you both. That was RT correspondent Sean Thomas from Moscow and Guyane Chichikan speaking to us from Washington, D.C.